I know a lot of Eagles fans have been very crucial. Okay, 8-1. Sitting at 8-1 right now is great. It's a great record to be at. Okay, the second half of the season is so important because it's the second half of the season for the playoffs. Okay, and the Eagles have to fix a lot of things. Eagles fans have been chirping about one specific thing with Jalen Hurts, and it might piss some people off. I had somebody mention this last week, and I respect everybody's opinions when it comes to it. For this Kansas City Chief game after next week, okay, by next week when the Eagles start practicing and we start preparing for KC in Kansas City, and this might piss a lot of people off. And I don't know if you guys are going to agree with it, not agree with it. Not going to be good. And I want to get into how you can substitute for Dallas Goedert not playing for the next few weeks. Okay? And BrianJohnson can make this very, very easy if he has even half a brain going to the second half of the season. Okay? And that's all I really want to talk about today. Let's get into it.
Because I've seen enough horror movies to know any weirdo wearing a mask is never friendly.
Yeah, what is going on, guys? I hope everyone's having a fantastic day today. So, Eagles are still on the bye week, and a lot of Eagles fans have been chirping a little bit about, Jalen Hurts and how they should go about this bruised knee. Okay, now I'm not gonna lie. During the Cowboys game, I was very nervous when Hurts was, obviously when DeMarcus Lawrence went after his knee when he was already on the ground, and then Hurts was really stumbling, and I got very nervous to the point where, like, is it good for him to even play the rest of this game? Typical Eagle fans are going to say, oh, let him play. We got to beat the Cowboys. I understand all that, okay? I have to look through another glass eye view of a different point of view other than being an Eagles fan to say that was a little worried and, was perfectly fine after that. I thought it was a lot worse than it was when it happened. Since the Eagles got out of that game, got the win, okay? A lot of Eagles fans have been chirping to even say, going into Kansas City, to bench Jalen Hurts for another week, for him to sacrifice a game, for him to not play in, just for him to get better for the second half of the season. Okay? They can't do that. Okay? Even if the Eagles wanted to rest Jalen Hurts for another week, just say if it does happen, he's going to get laughed at. It's not even any team it's not even just some other team from another division. This is the Kansas City Chiefs. This is the Super Bowl champions from last year. Imagine if Hurts was forced not to play just for him to get more healthy. Do you understand how people would look at him if he didn't play in this game? I understand that people are going to say that, he's hurt, he needs time off. I get it. But we really need this bye week. Thank God we're on it now. Just imagine what the Cowboy fans would say. Just imagine what the league would say if Hurts just backed out of playing. And he wouldn't back out, obviously. Even if he was forced, I don't even think he would be like, oh, yeah, no problem. I'll sit out this game. He would never do that. We all know this. But a lot of Eagles fans want this, and I don't know why. And I get it. You want Jalen Hurts 100% healthy, but, this rematch means a lot to Jalen Hurts. This was the moment where he got into his first Super Bowl and walked out with the confetti coming down. Okay, that was the opposite team. And remember the screensaver on his phone, with his head down, walking away from the confetti coming down in Arizona, and how pissed off the Eagle fans were, how pissed off the players were. We know what happened in that game, and we're hoping to friggin' God that we don't have a repeat of what happened in that game if the Eagles make it there. Okay? This would be the worst idea ever. Okay? Once they get the first seed, if they get the first seed, then I would kind of think about benching him for a couple weeks. That would be fine with me. If they get first seed pretty early, which last year they could have got it a lot earlier, but obviously in that Bears game where he messed up the shoulder or whatever it was last year, and, we only had to win like one more game. and we lost with Gardner Minshew twice. Jalen Hurts came back. We got the first seed. Could have had it a lot early. And that's the time where if you get first seed early, you could definitely rest guys that really need to rest. Okay? Not sit them out for 3-4 weeks, but at least for a couple weeks or a week or something like that, you have a chance to rest some guys. I just can't picture that happening with Jalen Hurts because he always wants to be on the field. He would be totally laughed at if the Eagles forced him to not play in Kansas City against the team that he lost the Super Bowl against. And trust me, guys, there's no doubt in my mind, like, at least for myself, like, I want to beat KC so badly. I understand it's just a regular season game, but it's still a game that we have to play, and we are not safe from contention or anything like that yet. Okay, we don't have anything in the bag right now when it comes to first seed, when it comes to anything. It helps us regardless. We get the win next week, but, you know, this is what Eagle fans are saying, and I really hope that, you know, this doesn't come to thought from the front office to Nick Sirianni to Howie Roseman. We should just sit him out for that game, sacrifice that one game for Hurts to feel a lot better and give him 3 weeks off, technically, this week, and then obviously next week. If this was the plan, then he wouldn't do anything at all next week, and then sit him for another week. I just don't see it happening, but just saying, it's going to piss a lot of people off, but some Eagles fans are definitely wanting this, and it's not me. Trust me, I want to make sure he's better. I think 2 weeks is good, or at least a week and a half. And we don't play until Monday night either, which is good. So they can always rest guys on Sunday. They'll rest guys on Sunday too. So that's a great thing that it's a Monday night game as well. Now, secondly, I want to go through with Dallas Goedert not playing now and potentially Quez Watkins returning, could they actually move some guys around? So how do you really compensate for Dallas Goedert not playing? How much trust do they have in Albert O that the Eagles traded for from Denver that has a lot of starting experience this past free agency, but he hasn't played that much? You know what I mean? You have to get some guys acclimated. You know, Albert O has starting experience. Definitely Grant Calcaterra and Jack Stahl have starting experience, but will they actually be focal points moving forward since Dallas Goedert will not be around? And an idea that can really happen is you can actually move Julio Jones to the tight end spot if you really want, if you want to make things interesting. Now, I don't know how good his blocking is to this point in his career, if he doesn't mind doing some of the dirty work, but as a pass catcher, why not? You know what I mean? Another target for Jalen Hurts. So if Quez Watkins does come back, you can add more firepower that way, move Julio Jones to tight end because he is a bigger body, has reliable hands, and you're not going to have him do anything crazy. You know, I want to see more from Julio Jones, no doubt. This way, if Quez does come back, and I got a feeling that Quez is going to start sooner or later, it's just going to happen. I know Nick loves him, and unfortunately, I do miss Quez Watkins and the burner that he is. It just depends on how much does Jalen Hurts really trust Quez Watkins when he gets his opportunity, when his number is called. Another thing that they could do as well is they could put DeAndre Swift as a wideout if they really want, okay? I really liked what they did in the Cowboys game with Swift and Gainwell being on the field at the same time. The one play where you had Swift on the left side as a wideout, you had Gainwell next to Jalen Hurts on his right side. Gainwell goes straight to the right side, shuffle steps to the right, and goes to the outside and goes out to block, while Swift is in motion from the left side. Hurts gives him the ball really quick, and I really like that play. It was a new... See, when you see BrianJohnson dial up new plays, you know it's a new play, and you're like, damn, I wish we could see more of this shit, because this is friggin' awesome. So you can always just add more weapons and put, like I said, Swift as a wideout would be a mismatch and can compensate for no Dallas Goedert. I understand that, you know, you like to have that big body and a big tight end, and I understand that. But like I said, if they have to compensate for a few weeks, there are a few things that they could do, which, you know, the Eagles still have a lot of weapons. It really depends if BrianJohnson has a brain. It really depends if BrianJohnson can really think clearly. I don't have a problem with Jack Stahl or Grant Calcaterra. Calcaterra has been dealing with a concussion the past couple weeks, and Jack Stahl is more valued than any other tight end, in my opinion, right now, just because he is valued at blocking. He's got big hands. He's got reliable hands at times and can get separation. As like I said, a bigger body tight end. That's why I think he has more value than Grant Calcaterra. And Albert O, I don't know how much they're making him the focal point with Dallas Goedert not being around, but I'm just giving other options for us to move guys around. With the more weapons you have, the more you can move guys around. Now, obviously, you're not going to be moving, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith to the inside, or, depending on, obviously, who you're facing, depending on the defense, depending on, what the mismatch is and what's really working. But Julio Jones moving to tight end really wouldn't bother me that much, and then having Quez on the field and would be a bad thing to do, but I know they're going to probably they're not going to use Julio Jones 100%. They'll probably go with Jack Stahl, and when Quez comes back, we're going to find out what happens, because I have no idea what's going to happen when Quez comes back. How they're going to treat Zaccheaus hasn't really had a successful game since Tampa Bay. He had one catch against Dallas in the first series. I think it was the first series, and he had another ball thrown to him in the fourth quarter. I think the fourth quarter, and it was totally off target. So they're barely even using these wide receiver threes at all, barely even targeting them when their moment comes, when their number is called. And I don't know how much trust Jalen Hurts has in Quez Watkins at this point. That second half of that Rams game or that Rams game in general with Quez Watkins kind of made me question things on, he'll throw it up to A.J. Brown when he's covered, don't matter, because obviously A.J. Brown's a better player and their chemistry is very good. Or Devontae Smith, as small as he is, they'd rather pass to A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith at crucial moments, and it seems like, maybe Quez Watkins just isn't trusted, after that, that drop in the Super Bowl, or went right through his hands, and, there's, like I said, there's other things the Eagles can do. It just really depends on BrianJohnson, and what he does later on. Linebacker is interesting. Okay. There are some things that the Eagles can do, and I honestly wouldn't mind it at all. And I think when it comes down to the linebacker spot with Nakobe Dean being on IR for the second time, and people have been attacking me literally like, oh, you hate Nolan Smith. Why? I mean, you hate, Nakobe Dean. You're talking crap about him, blah, 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 blah. Dude, the guy's been hurt 3 times, and I don't really see him being healthy the rest of the year at this point. He gets hurt like one more time. It's just... it's a red flag at this point where maybe this year isn't the time for Nakobe Dean, okay? And now how do you compensate for him not being around? Obviously, I think we've played better, at times when we've had just, Zach Cunningham, Nicholas Morrow getting more opportunity. But if there's another thing that they could do here is they can actually move Nolan Smith to linebacker, whether it's, the the Sam linebacker most likely, if that's what they want to do. Nolan Smith already early in the year when he wasn't getting much snaps, really until last game, he only had 9% snaps in the rotation. Derek Barnett had 20% snaps, and Derek Barnett was a healthy scratch against Dallas. They didn't even play him at all. So I think there's more to Nolan Smith than just him being an edge rusher to do multiple positions, and I think they could actually move him around. He did it at Georgia a crap ton of times, and he's got the athleticism to cover and do some things, but has he played in that position a lot this past year? No, and that's really the big issue. The big issue what we have with this secondary and the linebackers is that we haven't had guys really play multiple positions. We don't really have a lot of hybrid guys. Sidney Brown is starting to go from safety to nickel corner now. A lot of more guys are getting, opportunities at nickel. Now with Bradley Roby coming back now, your defense should be a lot better where you can afford to shadow slay on the number 1 guy and all that stuff. But we've talked about that a million times. Bradley Roby is like the main piece that needs to come back healthy and be healthy the rest of the year. And they can move Kevin Byard. I think they can do so much with the back end. They can do so much with these corners. And I'm not saying that they have to play press every single game, like I've said, but they need to revamp this defense a little bit. They need to change some things, at least tinker with it a little bit, because what they're doing now is not going to win you a Super Bowl, and it's definitely not going to win you a playoff game. Because really, you're looking at a good roster now that's with really bad coaching. That's how I look at it. The 2023 season right now is the roster is bailing out these coordinators, and this roster is that good. Okay, the roster is that good. The scheme is horrible. Offensively, it's very little things they have to fix. It's really time management, and it's situational football. What makes sense? What play makes more sense on certain downs? And I think that's been a big problem this year. And linebacker, you don't put money into this position. Like, you don't put money into it. So this is what you have to deal with. But I think we would be fine. But when it comes to coverage, all these linebackers are getting no opportunity. Depending on what the side calls on defense with these linebackers, and obviously this is going to connect to the defensive line too. So if you move Nolan Smith out, Derek Barnett comes in. But if you move Nolan Smith to linebacker, if you want to get him more reps there, Jason Pierre-Paul is another guy, which we talked about the other day. Jason Pierre-Paul will be another guy that you can bring in. He wants to play for a contender. He would be a really nice deep depth piece at defensive end. I don't see why this couldn't work or wouldn't work. Yes, he's 33, 34 years old. He's old as hell. He's got 93, 94 sacks in his career, and he's on the end part of his career, and he wants to win a ring somewhere. Okay, he says he'll sign to a practice squad at this point. Okay, to a contending team, to a practice squad that obviously they'll try to move him to rotation. And I think Jason Pierre-Paul would fit here perfectly as, the number 4 or whatever. And that's perfectly fine with me. You know what I mean? I have no issue with that. You know what I mean? Or the number 5, whatever, with Derek Barnett still being in the lineup. So they have to play fair with that. So I think that would be probably something that makes more sense. Nolan Smith, the linebacker, getting Jason Pierre-Paul as a deep depth rotational piece, and for his age and what he could do, I think he would definitely thrive, no doubt. You know what I mean? I'm not saying he's gonna get 10 plus sacks, but I think at least if he can get some pressures and make some tackles in the backfield, screw it, man. I'd make that move in 2 seconds if we really have somewhat of a chance with him. You know what I mean? I don't see why not. Played 13 games for the Ravens last year, so I don't know what his statistics are for last year, but obviously he wants to join a roster and win a ring, and that's what he wants to do. So that's all I really got to say about this whole situation. At the end of the day, guys, like, what's going to stop this team is the coaches. That's just what it is. I try not to say it on camera too much because I don't want to upset people or make people think that I have no support of this team, or I don't feel like this team is not going to go anywhere. I feel like this team can go anywhere they want to for years to come, but you're switching coordinators the past couple years. I mean, it's amazing how you have 2 brand new coordinators and you're 8-1 right now coming off a Super Bowl loss. No teams do that. Nobody does. Okay? No teams ever do that. But when it comes to the roster in general, it's always great. Howie Roseman is always putting together a fantastic roster, which is bailing out these coordinators. The side needs to revamp some decisions when it comes to who's covering who at this point, depending on matchups every week, because I don't blame Slay for talking up in the 4th quarter against the Dallas Cowboys and talking to the side and saying, hey, put me on 88, dude. I can't do this. I mean, you've set up these cornerbacks to fail. It's half and half, guys. It's I don't think it's more of the players. I think it's more of the scheme, and I've always thought that, because why is every player in this defense getting burned? Everybody is. There's not one player that's contesting a catch. It's always 5-10 yard separation. The zone coverage is horrible, and when Slay got back in the game to cover CeeDee Lamb, he did a good job. He only had 1 first down on the 5, I think it was like 4 or 5 times he was on CeeDee Lamb. He only got 1 first down. You know what I mean? They strayed from that last year too. Slay was doing a good job beginning of the season. They were kind of shadowing him, but the difference is you don't have Avonte Maddox. You don't have Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. That's a hybrid guy that could go from safety to corner and back whenever you need him, where the defense won't miss a beat. I think that's been the biggest loss of the season. You're losing a Maddox. You're losing Zach McPherson. Sean Bradley's one of our best special teamers. You know what I mean? It's those 2 injuries at one position, it sucks. And the Eagles got to stay on point and do their thing. It's really up to these coordinators. The coordinators lead what's going on here. Trust me. It's not going to take much for me to say that one of these guys is going to get fired. I don't know what, but, you know, it's got to get better. There's no team playing at 100% capability right now. That's fine. You know what I mean? The Eagles are fighting. They're clawing. They're winning games. They're fighting. I mean, I thought we were a resilient team before the Cowboys game. Then after that Cowboys game, that was a resilient game. That was a resilient win. That team held up. And I don't know how they did it, but they held up, you know, and it's amazing to watch. But it's just, I hate these games every week where we're not at least comfortable for a quarter. I mean, I feel like we're on the edge of our seat the whole entire game, every single Eagles game. And that's what the Eagles do to us at the end of the day. That's just what they do. And we have to just go with the flow and go with the ride. But other than that, let me know what you guys think about all these decisions. Like with Dallas Goedert being out, what would be your plan going forward? And you know, could BrianJohnson do a little bit more? And I feel like he can. Adjusting has been the #1 problem for BrianJohnson. Adjusting. Okay, week to week. And it's looked bold at times, and it's looked plain. It's looked boring. It's looked, you know, sometimes not mysterious and very, you know, you could tell what the Eagles are doing half the time, you know? So I get it. Nick Sirianni is going to say what he has to say at these press conferences and not throw anybody under the bus, you know, but I wonder what's happening behind the scenes. I better seen some type of change after this week. That's all I got to say. But you guys let me know in the comments what you guys think. I'll see you guys on the next one. Shakes it up, follow us up. Peace, guys. Peace.